Greetings and welcome back. Now in the last few videos we took a look at how we could use Level Blueprint to make a light that dynamically switched on and off as you entered and exited a room. So we can demo that real quick. As I move into this room, you see the light switch on, and as I move away, it switches off. Pretty cut and dry. And if we open up the actual Level Blueprint, which I'm going to do up here in the Blueprints menu, choose Edit Level Script Blueprint, and I'll slide this off to the side and hit play. So you can actually watch the data in the network flowing around, and you can see how each node is being triggered, which is very cool. Now what we're going to do, however, is push this to the next level by creating a class blueprint that does the same thing and more. You might be wondering, particularly if you're coming to this from Unreal Engine 3, why don't we just work with what we're doing here? I mean, this Level Blueprint thing seems great. In a lot of ways, it's exactly like what you experience with Kismet inside of Unreal Engine 3. The catch, however, is that, I mean, this is working fine. We can see, we enter the room, light current turns on, we leave, it turns off. But what if we wanted to do that again for another room? Well, we would need to duplicate all of these actors, being the mesh as well as the light, and then we'd have to make a whole different set of nodes within our Level Blueprint that powered those lights for when we entered that area. We'd also have to make sure we had a duplicate of the trigger volume as well. Now that might be just fine for, say, 1 or 2 rooms. But at some point, what if you had like a building with 80 or 90 or 1,000 rooms? At some point, that is a whole lot of really, really repetitive work. What we're going to do instead is create a modular system, literally an actor that we can place in our level, or if you're unfamiliar with the term actor, that's an Unreal object that can exist in your world. So we're going to create an actor that you can just place in the world that just works on its own. We only have to write that visual scripting code once, and we can reuse it as many times as we want to. The good news is that once you get the hang of working this way and creating class blueprints, you will probably use this far more often than you use Level Script to actually create in-game events. You're going to find it offers you a lot more flexibility, and it allows you to, most importantly, reuse bits and pieces of important scripts that you create. Whereas Level Script really requires that you reuse things very much the way you did in Kismet. But it is a good way to kind of get your foot in the door. So for starters, what we're going to do is disconnect our existing Level Script. So let's go up under the Blueprints menu again, open up our Level Script just like we did before. What we're going to do is just snip the wires that make this work. So hold down your Alt key and click on the execution wires leading out of our 2 events. It leaves the nodes in place, so if we want to hook them back up and play with this again later, we can always do that. But for now, we're sort of deactivating the whole thing in this way. So we'll click Compile and close this window. Now, just to show off, if we were to play, you'll notice the light just stays off the whole time. That's going to be useful to us because we are about to replace this wall sconce in the back with a class blueprint, a modular version of that wall sconce that we can use as many times as we want, wherever we want to in the level. So what I want you to do is select the light that's sitting here in the back. And I suppose just as a quick reminder, when we first began this project, all we did is we went over to File and went to New Project, and we created a blank project with starter content in it. So you should see all of this stuff, at least this room and something very much like the scene that you see here, when you first open up your initial map. And that's really all we've been playing with. So I'm going to go to the back here and delete this wall sconce. We'll start with the light, and then we'll delete the mesh as well. And you might notice it leaves this little tiny burn mark, almost like a stain on the wall. This is because of the pre-calculated lighting that Lightmask generated for this level. Well, what we're going to do is recalculate that now that that light source is gone. We're going to do that by clicking on the Build button at the very top of our toolbar. This is important whenever you're using pre-calculated light and shadow, which is a very performant way to deal with lighting. I'm going to click on Build, and then for me, the build is going to seem instantaneous because we're actually going to fast forward through the build process. On your end, it might take a couple of minutes, so please feel free to pause the video if you need to. Okay, so our lighting is built and we are back, and you notice that that stain is gone and the room looks generally much dimmer than it did before, which will be very useful as we add our own light sources. Now, the next thing we're going to do is actually create our class blueprint, but we're not going to do anything else to it in this video. I just kind of want to get things started and break things up into nice bite-sized chunks. So for starters, let's just create the blueprint itself. Now there are a lot of ways to create a class blueprint. You can do it in the content browser, which I can just right click. I'm going to make sure actually in the content browser that I navigate to the blueprints folder, which just kind of by the by, if you are looking at the content browser, you should see a list similar to mine if you've created a blank project with starter content. So we can click on the blueprints folder. I can right click on an empty space here and I can create a new blueprint. That's one way to go about it. But if we want to stick with what we know, we can also go up here to the blueprints menu, and at the very bottom you'll see class blueprint create. So we'll click on that, and the next thing we need to do is choose the parent class for this. Now there are several different parent classes we can choose from. What we're going to do is start with actor, which is any object that can be placed in our world. So we'll click that. Now it asks what folder you'd like to put this new blueprint or class blueprint in, and we're going to put this in the blueprints folder. Makes sense. And we're going to name this wall sconce and click OK. And if you take a look over here in the content browser, underneath your blueprints folder, wall sconce just appeared, and suddenly the blueprint editor opened up. But it looks a little bit different, actually a lot a bit different, than our level script or our level blueprint editor did. However, this is a really good spot to pause. So what I want you to do is make sure that everything is saved. I'm going to reach up and I'm actually going to close this editor. We'll reopen it in the next video. I want you to make sure you save your work. So here in the content browser, you see there's a little tiny save icon. This will save all of your modified assets. Make sure you click that, and it'll give you a list of all the things that you might have changed. Now, this may be a little different for you. I have changed a few things off camera because I was playing around with things, but we do see wall sconce, and we want to make sure that that is checked, and we'll click Save Selected. Also, make sure you save your level. So let's go to File and just choose Save, and that will save the level that you're working on. Notice that is two separate actions. You need to save your assets and also save your level. You can alternatively come up here and just choose Save All, and that will save everything. So there's a lot of different ways to go about saving. Just make sure you're aware of them all. So that's going to wrap things up for this video, and in the next video, we will start assembling our class blueprint.